My name is Sophia Winters, and I am 27 years old, living in the quaint town of Linden Meadow. At first glance, I seem like your typical young woman just trying to figure out life. I have a small graphic design business, keep a close-knit group of friends, and enjoy weekend hikes, but my life is like an art piece that is more complex than it seems at first. There is a hidden layer beneath the surface, one that I rarely discuss, and it all began several years ago when I was still in college. It was during this time that I encountered someone who would turn my world upside down, who I suddenly deemed my nemesis, and I know this sounds dramatic, but this experience felt like a nightmare I could hardly escape. I was an international student, far from home and immersed in a culture where I barely understood the language. Being young, naive, and eager to fit in, I made a poor choice that would soon haunt me. I sought the help of a man who had been introduced to my family as a kind of personal assistant translator. He had helped us buy a phone once before without any issues, so I naturally assumed he could do the same again. However, this time, the price he quoted seemed unusually high. He offered a payment plan that sounded convenient for a college student like me, and I was excited about getting a new phone, so I went for it. I trusted him too easily. Once I received the phone, my excitement quickly faded. The phone started showing signs of being refurbished. It was glitchy. Then, out of nowhere, it began asking for someone else's iCloud login, which sent alarm bells ringing in my head. This was not just a minor inconvenience, it was a serious problem. I reached out to him, expecting a simple resolution. Instead, what I encountered was hostility, and that is when everything spiraled out of control. The moment I mentioned I wanted a receipt to verify what I had purchased, he became aggressive, revealing his true nature. Here is where it gets complicated. I come from a family where one member is well known, not a celebrity by any stretch, but enough to bring attention whenever I was involved in something. He caught wind of this and seized the opportunity. What started as a simple transaction quickly morphed into a messy debacle that would consume my life for the next several years. Instead of resolving this issue quietly, he was more interested in leveraging my family's name to gain power over me. His demands became unreasonable, as he was evidently out to inflict maximum humiliation, not just on me, but also on my innocent family member who had nothing to do with this entire mess. So there I was, battling this man who seemed to thrive off the chaos he had created. He took it a step further and sued me and my family member, spreading lies and misinformation that shook me to my core. It was an experience I cannot quantify. The feeling of helplessness was overwhelming. The pain came not just from the stress that the lawsuit brought into my life, but from knowing that someone would use my family's name as a weapon against me. The media soon got hold of the story and transformed it into a sensationalist nightmare. It felt like all my fears were coming to life. My life was a scene from a bad movie, and I was the unwilling star. We tried to resolve the situation peacefully. I attempted mediation multiple times, suggested ridiculous offers just to make the headache go away, all while knowing that I was not in the wrong. I just wanted my life back. Unfortunately, he was relentless. Time passed, and despite my efforts, he only seemed to grow bolder. The court case dragged on, damaging my reputation. The media coverage was relentless. It felt like I carried the weight of the world on my shoulders. Even after the dust began to settle from the court case and the ruling ruled in my favor, I could not shake the feeling that this man was still up to no good. Something in my gut told me he was involved in shady activities that were far more dangerous than just a simple phone transaction gone wrong. It was then that something clicked inside me. Despite the stress and turmoil, I became consumed with a need for justice, for my peace of mind, and for the crime he had committed against my family name. Driven by this new sense of determination, I embarked on a stealthy investigation of my own. I know that sounds obsessive, and perhaps it was, but it was impossible for me to let it go. I created fake social media accounts to gather intel, reached out to mutual acquaintances, and even sent a friend to infiltrate his church, hoping to gain insight into his life. Day by day, I would uncover what I could, and despite the risks, I could not ignore the nagging sensation that there was more beneath the layers of this man's deceit. Weeks turned into months, and my investigation bore fruit. I stumbled upon documents that led me down a rabbit hole of fraud and deception, ones that revealed how he obtained residency in the country. My heart raced as the pieces fell into place. I did not know how to handle this newfound information, but I felt a surge of power coursing through my veins. I had a choice to make. I could either confront him directly or take a more indirect route. I chose the latter for the simple reason that I wanted him to feel the weight of his actions. Taking a deep breath, I submitted an anonymous tip to the police, feeling both exhilarated and terrified at the same time. I was ready to be the catalyst for his downfall. Weeks went by, and I stifled my anxiety, unsure of what would come next. Then, one day, I decided to search his name again, my fingers trembling as I typed. The results that came up were astonishing. There was an active federal investigation underway into his activities. I almost couldn't believe it. My heart soared. This was the validation I needed. Days turned into months as I followed the developments of the case, reading whatever bits of information became available. Nearly a year after my anonymous tip, I found out that he had been convicted, and it was one of the happiest days of my life. The details were not easy to digest. He was sentenced to 1 year of community service, fined, and was now facing deportation. The man who had sought to ruin my life was now in the grips of a system he had tried to manipulate for so long. As I sit here and reflect upon this entire experience, I can say there was something deeply poetic about it. He was held accountable for crimes unrelated to me, but the irony of it all was not lost on me. I had chosen my path carefully, and while I felt triumph, it was not without some harsh reflections. I thought I would feel vindicated in my victory, but the truth is this journey changed me in ways I never expected. I would not be the victim. I would not let my life be defined by his cruelty. Looking into the future, I made the decision to shift my focus. The darkness of that experience no longer held power over me. I learned to trust myself more and protect what is dear. In many ways, I had released myself from the shackles of fear, and though the scars remained, they served as reminders of my strength and resilience. While he might fight his appeal, the truth is I discovered the power of standing up for myself, and in the end, that is what truly mattered.